The rain fell softly on the city streets, blurring the red and yellow lights that blinked above. Jenna sat at her favorite cafe, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, her eyes scanning the crowd for a familiar face. She almost didn't notice the name scrolling across her phone, but then she saw it, the name that made her stomach drop like a stone: Derek. She rolled her eyes and pushed her medium-length brown hair behind her ear. Derek had always been a thorn in her side, a man who thought he could charm the world with that easy smile and way of talking that somehow made every word seem special. But to Jenna, it was just noise. Maybe it was the way he laughed too loudly, or the way he would lean in too far when talking to people, making it hard to breathe. Whatever it was, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was more trouble than he was worth. The phone rang again, breaking her thoughts. She took a deep breath, her fingers hovering over the screen. The name still glared at her, taunting, as though it held the secrets of the universe just out of reach. She pushed the coffee cup away, feeling suddenly restless. She murmured to herself, her heart racing just a little. The last time they had spoken, they'd had a fight, a loud one filled with harsh words and heavy silences. She remembered the way he had looked at her, eyes wide, confusion mixing with disappointment. They had torn at each other over so many small things that now seemed so trivial. With her sigh, she finally answered the call, her finger shaking slightly against the screen. She said, trying to sound tougher than she felt. "Hey, Jenna," came his voice, smooth and surprisingly soothing. Her heart sank further. "My help." He hesitated, and she could almost picture the way he leaned back in his chair, the way he looked when he was trying to figure out how to soften the blow of whatever he was about to say. "There's something I need you to do for me. Of course it was complicated." Their whole relationship had been a complicated mess of misunderstandings, mismatched goals, and untold stories. She asked, raising an eyebrow even though he couldn't see her. "I can't tell you all of it over the phone. I need you to meet me." His voice dropped, almost pleading. Jenna felt a flicker of recognition, the old warmth that once filled her whenever he called her name. It was confusing, that warmth. It was the reason she had cared about him in the first place. But the more she thought about it, the more it made her angry. She didn't want to be that person again, the one who ran back every time he snapped his fingers. She replied, an edge slipping into her tone. "You're right," he admitted, his voice steady. "I've made a lot of mistakes, but this is important, Jenna. Something has happened that I can't handle alone. Trust." That word echoed in her mind, twisting as she grappled with whether to believe him. The last time he had said he needed her, it was because he was feeling down after a breakup, and she had opened her heart to him, only for him to disappear again. She asked, curiosity getting the best of her. "I can't tell you over the phone, but just meet me at the park. I promise I'll explain everything. It's urgent, Jenna." As much as she wanted to say no, something in his voice pulled her in. It was that raw vulnerability she hadn't heard in a long time. The way he used to look at her, eyes softening when he really opened up. She found herself hesitating, her heart racing again. "Fine," she said, though she wasn't sure if she meant it or if she was simply reacting to the wave of emotion washing over her. "Thank you," he said quickly, relief seeping through the line. And with that, the call ended abruptly. Jenna stared at her phone, the same old frustration bubbling up again. She probably shouldn't go. She had other things to do, people who valued her time. But she couldn't shake the feeling that whatever Derek wanted, it was going to change everything, like a storm cloud that had just rolled in on an otherwise sunny day. The park was quiet when she arrived, the rain now a light drizzle that added a sense of calm over the once bustling space. She could see him sitting on a bench, his dark jacket pulled tightly against the chilly air. He looked almost fragile the way his head hung low. Jenna felt a pang of empathy mixed with annoyance as she approached him. "Hey," she said, her voice firmer than she felt. Derek looked up, his blue eyes meeting hers. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he shifted nervously. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice a little hoarse. She pressed, crossing her arms as she stood in front of him. "It's my sister," he said, his gaze dropping again. She asked, already feeling the air shift into something dangerous. "She got involved with some bad people," he confessed, his voice trembling as he continued. "I can't go into all the details right now, but I need you to come with me. We're going to find her, Jenna." His desperation made her chest tight. She searched his face for any trace of dishonesty, but found only raw fear. The fight inside her wavered, unsure of whether to push him away or embrace the man she had known. "Can't just walk into a situation like that blindly," she replied, voice steadier than she felt. "I know," he said urgently, "but if we don't act now, who knows what'll happen to her." It was damning to hear his heart laid bare. She had never seen this side of Derek before, and it stirred something deep within her, a longing to help, mixed with the remnants of anger she still held onto. She hesitated, her mind racing through the possibilities, the danger, the risk, the fear creeping in alongside hope. "And what do you plan to do? Talk to these people?" Jenna's heart ached, torn between the man he was and the man he could be. "I've got a plan," he said, bravely meeting her gaze, "but I can't do it without you." Every muscle in her body wanted to resist him, to turn around and walk away, yet another part of her, the part that had once loved him fiercely, was already warming at the thought of standing by his side, even if it was just for a moment. "Fine," she finally said, her voice steadier now, mixed with a dose of uncertainty. "A flicker of hope lit his face. "Thank you, Jenna." As they walked deeper into the park, nerves heightened around them. Jenna felt the weight of the world settling on their shoulders. She prepared for the unknown, for whatever shadows awaited them. And somewhere deep inside, that warmth flickered back to life, surprising her in a way she hadn't anticipated. She was rediscovering the bond they had, even through the chaos lessons they had learned together. Derek told her about his sister, revealing bits of her life she had never known. They chatted casually, the tension loosening ever so slightly, the past weighing them down while the possibility of a shared future began to float on the air. But when they reached a dilapidated building at the edge of town, Jenna felt her heart sink. Something in the air grew heavy, a sense of foreboding pushing down on her shoulders. She glanced at Derek, whose face had turned pale. She whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "I have to be," he replied, his voice strong but uncertain. With that, Jenna took a deep breath and stepped inside behind him, her heart racing, the promise of what lay ahead spiraling into an uncharted territory. Whatever happened next would shape them both, bending their past into a new future. In that moment, all doubt faded, and all they had left was the fragile bond of two people standing together against whatever darkness awaited. And as their footsteps echoed in the darkened corridor, it felt like the storm was finally upon them. The rain-soaked streets of the city flickered under the glow of streetlights, casting shadows that danced along the pavement. Jenna pulled her coat tighter around her as she stepped out of the cafe, the familiar scent of coffee still lingering in her mind. She took a breath of the cool night air, ready to lose herself in the rhythm of the city when her phone buzzed in her pocket. A name flashed across the screen. Derek. Just seeing it made her stomach twist. She rolled her eyes, the annoyance bubbling up like a hot kettle. Why now? She didn't want to think about him, not when she was trying to move on, not when all she wanted was a peaceful evening. She considered ignoring the call and tossing her phone into a nearby puddle. Yet something pulled at her curiosity, an itch she couldn't scratch. What could he want? With another sigh she answered, her heart pounding unexpectedly. His voice was almost a whisper, crackling through the line. Her heart raced at the urgency, as though something heavy and dark had clung to him, waiting to spill over. "Help with what?" I know," he replied quickly. "But this is serious." The defensiveness in her rose, but she felt a flicker of hesitation. Derek had a way of turning even the simplest request into a grand storm. "Just tell me what it is. You've got 3 minutes," she said, her voice tight. "I didn't want to say too much over the phone," he said, his voice trembling. "But it's about my brother. He's in trouble, really bad trouble." Her breathing grew shallow. "What kind of trouble?" "I can't explain everything now." The old park, memories rushed through her, laughter, inside jokes, the whisper of secrets exchanged under the moonlight. Those moments felt like another lifetime, long before they drifted into this awkward relationship filled with misunderstandings. "Fine," she said, though doubt twisted her stomach. "I promise," he said, almost desperate. Jenna felt unsteady as she hung up. The choice felt too big, like stepping off a cliff without knowing where she would land. But despite everything, she couldn't shake the ache of care that had always been there beneath her frustration. The park was eerily quiet when she arrived, the rain having eased to a gentle drizzle. Moonlight barely cut through the clouds, creating a somber blur. She spotted Derek pacing by the entrance, his silhouette tense and restless. He looked up as she approached, his face a mix of relief and worry. "Thanks for coming," he said, his voice almost cracking. She asked, crossing her arms against the cool air. "My brother Ryan, he's mixed up in something dangerous, and the fear in his eyes shook her. "Mixed up with what? Drugs?" "Worse," he breathed, shifting his weight. "Something that's haunted him for a while." Jenna's heart pounded in her chest. "It's not about waltzing in, it's about connecting the dots," he said, his eyes fierce. "I have information, people I've talked to, but I need you by my side." She hesitated, wanting to dismiss him again, wanting to walk away. But the desperation in his voice struck a chord deep inside her, one she thought had gone silent long ago. The bond they shared, the warmth that once flowed between them, stirred like ash catching flame. She asked, her resolve hardening, "I have a lead on where he might be. If we find him, we can get him out before it gets worse," he replied, urgency rolling off him like waves crashing against a shore. As they walked deeper into the park, the shadows loomed heavier, gnawing at her resolve. With each step, she could feel the gravity of their collective past pushing against her, every memory layered with a sense of betrayal and forgotten warmth. The cold air wrapped around her, pulling her down, but she forced herself to stay focused. Derek pulled out his phone, fingers quickly tapping away. "There's an address here, we need to be careful." She let out a small breath, the reality settling in like a heavy cloak across her shoulders. "And what if we don't make it out?" His gaze pierced through her, and she could see the man she had once admired in the strength of his conviction. He needed her, and that realization abruptly cracked the walls she had built around her heart. "Okay, let's do it," she said, heart pounding but filled with a sense of purpose. The drive to the address felt surreal, the city blurring past them like a painting running in the rain. The silence in the car was deafening, each breath heavy with anticipation. She kept stealing glances at Derek, trying to read his expression, hoping for some heat or certainty to warm her. But all she saw was resolve, layered with threads of fear. As they pulled up to an old warehouse, her stomach knotted. The building stood ominously against the backdrop of half-lit streetlights, its windows dark and forbidding. Jenna's heart raced like a drum. Derek asked, his voice steady, yet his eyes held a hint of uncertainty. They stepped out of the car, feeling the chill creep in, mingling with trepidation. They moved quietly, scanning the area for any unexpected movements. Inside the crumbling walls, dirt and shadows melded together, a haunting echo of past lives trapped in the air. "Stay close to me," Derek whispered as they approached a side entrance, pulling out a flashlight. They ventured inside, the beam cutting through the gloom, illuminating abandoned crates and remnants of a forgotten time. Taking slow, steady steps, they crept deeper into the building until they could hear muffled voices. A lump formed in Jenna's throat. "Then we'll fight our way out," he said, determination ringing through his words, but there was a fragility just beneath the surface. As they moved closer, she could barely make out fragments of conversation. It felt like time had stopped around them, the world narrowing to this one fragile moment. Suddenly, Derek paused, motioning her to quiet down. Jenna held her breath, adrenaline pounding in her ears. Just beyond a thick wall, she could see silhouettes, moving like shadows, their voices rising and falling, sharp with tension. I think I see him," Derek whispered, peeling back the corner of a curtain. She watched, breath hitching, as a figure emerged into the feeble light. Ryan looked worn, strung out, his face gaunt and tired. It was clear he'd been through hell. But seeing him there alive reignited a spark inside Jenna, a fierce determination to save him. A voice barked nearby. The men around Ryan turned, their brutish presence casting long shadows. Derek hissed, and she instinctively ducked behind an old wooden crate just as the tension in the air tightened and exploded into chaos. Voices shouted, pushing through the heavy atmosphere as she realized they were outnumbered. Panic surged through her. "We make a distraction," he said, eyes flashing with urgency. Just as Derek moved, a shout erupted, and she watched him sprint across the room, drawing attention to himself and away from Ryan. It felt like slow motion as shadows chased after him, leaving Jenna exposed. The weight of her choice slammed against her, twisting inside her. She couldn't stay here, couldn't let confusion paralyze her. She had to believe in the bond that had not faded, no matter how fractured their relationship had become. She called, her voice echoing off the walls, filled with urgency. He turned, confusion etched in his features. She gestured for him to come close. Together, they moved as she pushed him toward the door, but as fate would have it, the moment wasn't without its obstacles. One of the men, larger and more menacing than she could have imagined, blocked their escape route. He growled, lunging toward them. In that moment, Jenna felt adrenaline course through her veins, and without thinking, she grabbed a nearby metal pipe and swung it with all her might, surprising herself as it connected with the man's arm. He stumbled back, startled, giving them precious seconds to dart past him. Ryan shouted, the fear transforming into determination as they bolted together through the door, breathless and fueled by sheer survival. Outside, the cool air hit them like a splash of water, washing away the storm that had enveloped them inside. But they had no time to celebrate. They raced toward Derek, who was still fighting off shadows of his own. He yelled, seeing them. He ducked under a punching fist, kicking back and forcing his way toward them. As they regrouped, Jenna felt a tremor run through her body, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She asked, looking to him, "Get in the car," he barked. Heart pounding, they scrambled into the vehicle, daring glances back at the building. As they sped away, Jenna leaned back against the seat, adrenaline still coursing through her. They were alive, they had made it. Ryan's troubled eyes were wide with a mix of disbelief and relief. "I can't believe you actually came back for me," he said, voice trembling with emotion. "Always," Derek replied, glancing at Jenna, a flicker of pride passing between them. But as the city lights flickered past, Jenna knew that a storm might still be brewing on the horizon. The bond between them had shifted, reshaped in the heat of chaos. Whether or not that bond could sustain the weight of their past still hung uncertain in the air. But beneath it all there was hope, a flickering flame born from shared struggle, breathing life into the shadows of their history. And deep down, Jenna understood they faced more than just danger. They faced a new beginning, a path woven together by choices made in the dark. It was a chilly Thursday evening when Jenna's phone lit up like a beacon in the dark. She had just settled into her favorite spot on the couch, ready to dive into a novel that transported her far away from reality. But as she glanced down at her screen, her heart sank. The name that glared back at her was Derek. She rolled her eyes, the familiar feeling of aggravation washing over her. Derek. Just the sight of his name stirred up a whirlwind of emotions: frustration, annoyance, maybe even a touch of nostalgia. He had always had a flair for the dramatic, a way of flipping her world upside down just by showing up. But right now, she just wanted a peaceful evening alone. Taking a deep breath, she swiped to ignore the call. "Not tonight," she muttered to herself. She turned back to her book, hoping to drown out her thoughts. But the unanswered call hung in the air like a storm cloud, and curiosity nagged at her from the back of her mind. What could he possibly want? A part of her felt a twinge of concern despite the anger. They hadn't spoken in weeks, not since that fierce argument when everything between them had changed. Just as she tried to focus on the page, her phone buzzed again. Another notification. This time it was a text. Please answer. Jenna hesitated, chewing her lip. Part of her screamed to ignore it once again, but another part, recognizing the raw urgency in his words, had her tapping the screen before she could think twice. She typed back, her heart racing a little. The response came through almost immediately. Can we talk? Help. The word hung like a weight in the room, forcing her to confront all the unresolved feelings piled up between them. He had always known how to manipulate her fears and kindness. I can't help you with your messes anymore, she shot back, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Another moment of silence passed before his reply arrived. I wouldn't ask unless it was serious. The old diner, memories flooded in the laughter, the late-night confessions over greasy fries, the bittersweet taste of broken dreams. She pictured him smiling, hair tousled and eyes bright with mischief. But now that warmth felt like a distant echo, overshadowed by recent heartbreak. She stared at the text, the internal battle raging inside her. She texted back, sending the question she was too scared to voice aloud. Because I need you, Jenna, that's the truth. As she read his words, something softened inside her, an ache of nostalgia mixed with anger. Perhaps she still cared, perhaps she wasn't ready to let go. Fine, she finally replied, adding a reluctant shrug emoji. Promptly, she threw on a jacket and stepped out into the night. The cold air bit at her skin, but she welcomed it. It was a distraction from the turmoil brewing inside her. As she drove to the diner, thoughts raced through her mind. What could possibly be so urgent? What did Derek get himself into now? The diner's neon sign flickered against the backdrop of the dark sky as she pulled into the empty parking lot. It felt like stepping back in time. Nothing had changed in this old place. The vinyl booths, the jukebox in the corner, the smell of coffee and grease wafting through the air. She found him sitting at their usual booth, head bent low with fingers drumming anxiously against the table. The sight of him tugged at her heart. His familiar figure hadn't changed, but the air around him felt tense, charged with unspoken words. Thanks for coming, he said quietly, glancing up as she approached. The warmth of his voice still had the power to conjure up memories she tried to forget. Jenna asked, trying to keep her tone steady. She slipped into the booth across from him, arms crossed defiantly. Derek took a deep breath, his eyes darting away as if searching for the right words. He paused, visibly wrestling with how to frame his thoughts. She nodded, recalling the younger sibling who had always looked up to Derek, innocent, playful, and blissfully unaware of his brother's stormy life. He's in trouble. Her stomach dropped at the gravity of his words. He's involved with a group that's been causing chaos in the city. Derek's voice faltered, and Jenna could see the pain etched across his features. Derek, she said, anger creeping in again, how could you let this happen? He clenched his fists, frustration bleeding through. I didn't know he'd get so wrapped up in it. I just need your help to find him, okay? Her walls began to crack, the intensity of his plea breaking through the layers of hurt. I need you to come with me. We can track down his last known whereabouts together. You know how to read people better than I do. Her heart raced. I'd rather face trouble with you than alone. I know I messed up. That familiar warmth returned, mingling with dread. You have to realize you can't just pull me in and out of your life whenever it suits you. I know, but this isn't about us, it's about Jamie. I need you, he said again, this time with a raw honesty that nearly drew her in. Looking at him, the image of the boy she'd known resurfaced amid the wreck of their past. The fights, the misunderstandings, the broken promises, it all faded for a moment, leaving just this boy begging for help. I want to help, but it's risky, she admitted, softening just a touch. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe, I promise, he said earnestly. Jenna studied his face, the deep lines of concern etched on his forehead. After years of struggling to move on, she realized that perhaps this was their moment, a chance to redefine what their relationship could be in the chaos of it all. Okay, she finally said, the words feeling heavier than the weight of the world. Relief flooded Derek's features like sunlight breaking through a storm. Thank you, Jenna. They finished their coffee and discussed their plan, a mixture of dread and adrenaline coursing through them. Jenna felt the weight of their past fueling their mission. Each word exchanged brought them a step closer to the boy they both cared about, even if their own history was fraught with entanglements. We'll start at his last hangout. A place he used to go with his friends, Derek said, jotting down the address on a napkin as if it was the last lifeline. The drive to the bar was a heartbeat each passing street, a reminder of the path they had walked together and apart. Jenna wrestled with a whirlpool of emotions, fear, excitement, pity, all tangled together in a maelstrom of memory and regret. The bar stood dark and intimidating as they arrived, a far cry from the happy places they used to visit together. Jenna felt the cool grip of anxiety tighten as they walked toward the entrance, their footsteps echoing against the pavement. Give me a minute to talk to the bartender, then we can see if anyone knows anything, Derek said, glancing nervously at her. In the dim light, he approached the bar. Jenna's heart threatened to seize as she watched him. Memories flooded back of the night spent laughing and sharing secrets under neon lights, a time when everything felt innocent and possible. Derek leaned in to speak softly, signaling her to hang back. She watched, her stomach twisting as he gestured toward the bartender. Anxiety clawed at her as time seemed to stretch. What if things went wrong? What if they were too late? Finally, she saw the bartender shake his head, and Derek's shoulders slumped in defeat. But in that moment, one of Jamie's friends, a face Jenna recognized from years past, walked in looking equally worn. The friend exclaimed, surprise flickering across his features. Derek's voice was urgent. The friend's expression shifted to one of concern. He's been hanging with some rough people. Jenna chimed in, stepping forward. The friend hesitated, glancing around as if debating how much to reveal. Look, he got involved with some guys who are into illegal stuff, possible drug trafficking. Jenna felt her heart drop. The friend replied, frustration etching his brows, but he wouldn't listen. He thinks he knows better. Derek's face hardened. I can help, but you have to be careful. These guys don't play nice, the friend warned, casting a furtive glance toward the door. I'll take my chances, Derek said firmly. The friend agreed to show them where Jamie had last been seen, and as they piled into the car, Jenna's anxiety washed over her like a tidal wave. What had they gotten themselves into? Just stick close to me, Derek said, capturing Jenna's nervous gaze in his own. The journey felt surreal. With each turn, they were plunging deeper into a world they never wanted to face. Jenna's heart drummed erratically as the city became a blur of shadows and streetlights, anticipation mingling with fear. They arrived at a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town, where the air felt thick with tension. A small group of rough-looking men stood outside, laughter echoing in the air. Jamie's friend pulled them aside. This is where I last saw him. You'd better be careful, he warned, looking uneasy. Don't worry, Derek said, voice steady. Jenna's pulse raced as they approached, the camaraderie they had shared now tinged with an edge of danger. The laughter fell silent as they neared the group, eyes turning to evaluate this unexpected intrusion. Derek shouted, projecting confidence despite the tension radiating from his body. One of the men stepped forward, a look of menace etched across his face. Jamie, Jenna felt Derek tense beside her. He's my brother. Yeah, Jenna recognized the moment, the flash of danger hovering in the air. Because if you care about your business, you want to keep him safe, she said, surprising herself with the strength of her voice. The man's eyes flickered, considering her words, but the tension remained thick. You think you can come here and demand anything? Derek's voice was low but firm. We know what you're involved in. The man sneered but glanced at his companions. There was a split second where Jenna felt the odds shifting. All right, but we're not doing this for you, he said, his tone decisive. Derek pressed, stepping closer. Inside, last I saw, he was with a couple of guys. With a nod of gratitude, Jenna and Derek turned to enter the building. The moment they stepped inside, it felt like crossing into another world. The music pulsed through the air, thick with tension, and shadows danced against grime-covered walls. As they moved deeper into the warehouse, whispers filled the air, flickering glances exchanged as people stepped aside, recognizing Derek. He moved with purpose, a champion searching for his lost brother, fueled by desperation and familial love. We have to find Jamie, Jenna urged, keeping her voice low. No, Derek replied, determination hardening every word. They pushed through the crowd until they spotted a group gathered around a table, drinks spilling, loud conversations echoing into the air. And there in the center was Jamie, lost in the haze of chaos, laughing too loudly, a figure drifting further away into the darkness. Derek called out, desperation lacing his voice. At the sound of his brother's name, Jamie turned, confusion flickering across his face before it melted into surprise. Derek. We need to talk, Derek said, moving toward him. I'm fine, man, just hanging out, Jamie replied, brushing off his concern. Derek repeated incredulously. As Jamie's gaze shifted, Jenna knew the reality of the situation weighed heavily on him. The laughter around them stilled, the air thick with judgment and misunderstanding. You don't get it, Jamie muttered, frustration bleeding into his tone. Control, this is not control. You're risking everything, Derek pressed, desperation clawing at him. We need to go. Jamie hesitated, glancing at his friends who remained frozen in place. Think about it, Jamie. Derek gestured to the group around the table, lost souls dancing at the edge of oblivion. For a moment, uncertainty flooded Jamie's eyes, and Jenna held her breath, hoping he'd see the truth. I don't know, man, Derek shouted, the rawness of his emotions spilling into the air. Something broke in Jamie's features, a crack in the facade that had kept him afloat in this dark world. He looked at Derek, and in that moment Jenna saw the little brother she had known, not the lost soul trying to grapple with shadows. Okay, let's go, Jamie finally conceded, the fear breaking through the bravado. Without hesitation, Derek stepped forward, taking his brother's arm. As they turned to walk away, the atmosphere thickened. Group around them murmured in confusion, but Jenna felt a flicker of triumph ignite within. They had done it against the odds, they were reclaiming Jamie. But as they reached the exit, the tension shifted, a sense of danger rolling in behind them like a sudden gust of wind. The growl of voices rose, anger swelling as men realized they were being abandoned. Hey, one shouted, charging forward. Jenna's adrenaline surged once again, igniting fear and resolve. She yelled, pushing Jamie and Derek ahead of her. They burst through the doors, hearts pounding, breaths heavy with urgency as they darted toward the car. Behind them, chaos erupted like a storm. Shouts filled the air, footsteps pounding after them. Go, Derek urged, throwing open the car door as they piled inside. Jenna turned the key in the ignition, her hands trembling as the engine roared to life. They sped out of the parking lot, heart racing as they fled into the night. Jamie asked, breathless, glancing between them. Derek said, a mix of exasperation and relief flooding his voice, just come home. As they escaped into the shadows, Jenna felt the weight release a little. The bond forged through chaos reel and raw brought warmth into her chest. She realized that even amid the wreckage, hope could flicker back into existence. They held onto each other, not just out of necessity, but because they were family, reunited by choices made in the dark. As they drove into the night, the haunting weight of their past slowly transformed into something powerful, a chance for redemption. They weren't just looking for Jamie anymore. They were igniting a journey that could redefine who they all were, and it was in these moments that they found their true strength, together. It was just past midnight when Jenna's world tilted on its axis. There she was, wrapped in a cocoon of blankets, her favorite rom-com flickering on the screen when her phone buzzed insistently on the bedside table. She glanced over, her heart sinking at the sight of the name that lit up her screen, Derek. Rolling her eyes, she could hardly believe it was happening again. Why now? Why him? The mere thought of his name stirred a blend of irritation and memories she'd rather forget. Jenna leaned back against her pillows, the sound of the movie fading into the background. Not tonight, she whispered to herself, but the phone buzzed again, relentless. With a reluctant sigh, she reached for it, half expecting another cliché message. As she tapped the screen, her thumb hesitated. She could see his face in her mind, smiling, charming, and somehow infuriating. Their last encounter had ended in a flurry of hurt feelings and angry words they hadn't spoken in weeks. She finally answered, her voice a mix of annoyance and curiosity. His voice crackled through the line, something almost desperate threading through it. I really need you to listen to me. She leaned forward, intrigued against her better judgment. He hadn't sounded like this before. Was it fear? I can't explain it over the phone. Just come to the old park, okay? Jenna felt a twinge in her chest. The old park. Memories washed over her like waves crashing against the shore. They shared countless late-night walks there, whispering dreams and secrets under the stars. It was a woven tapestry of their history, both beautiful and painful. I don't want to see you, Derek, not after everything, she said, her heart pounding with a mix of emotions. I need your help, it's important, he replied, voice shaking. A flicker of concern spread through her. There was a beat of silence before he responded. It's not about me, it's about my sister, please, Jenna. The mention of his sister, someone Jenna had always admired, struck a chord she couldn't ignore. She's in a bad situation and I don't know where to turn. Against her better judgment, she found herself agreeing. I'll meet you. As Jenna got dressed, her mind raced. Could she really trust Derek again? Each interaction was a tightrope walk, their history a series of missteps and reconciliations. But the urgency in his voice gnawed at her. There was something more at play here. When she arrived at the park, the air was heavy, chill creeping in as clouds obscured the moonlight. The soft rustle of leaves, the distant sounds of the city, melted away as she saw Derek standing there, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Thanks for coming, he said, breathless, his eyes darting with worry. She asked, crossing her arms, trying to shield herself from emotions she wished to keep buried. My sister, Lily, she's got tangled up with the wrong crowd. I thought I could help her, but I don't know what to do, he confessed, his voice cracking. Panic gripped her. What do you mean? What wrong crowd? She got involved with people who are dangerous. Derek's hands clenched into fists. Jenna felt the weight of his words settle in her stomach. She had never seen Derek like this raw, vulnerable. She couldn't ignore the bond they once shared, the time spent laughing and dreaming of bright futures. I just thought that if you could talk to her, reason with her, maybe you could get through to her. Jenna echoed, feeling a wave of skepticism wash over her. Please, Jenna. I don't know what else to do. I need you, he pleaded. His vulnerability shattered the walls she had built. Maybe it was the strength of his plea or the memories they once shared. Whatever it was, it dug into her heart. She took a deep breath. I can take you to a place where she might be hanging out. Lead the way, Jenna said, feeling the weight of destiny pressing down on her. There was something bold in stepping into this unknown territory, a flicker of resolve that smothered her doubts. Derek drove through the darkened streets, their past hanging heavily between them like a quiet ghost. The silence felt thick and charged as they navigated the twists and turns to an unfamiliar neighborhood. Jenna stole glances at Derek, watching the shadows dance across his face, trying to decipher the man he had become. She asked after a while, breaking the silence. He hesitated, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. After Mom died, everything fell apart. Lily, she took it hard. I tried to be the father figure, but I couldn't hold it together. Then she found friends who weren't exactly. They're into drugs, selling things, dangerous stuff. His voice trailed off, filled with regret. Jenna felt a pang of sympathy. It's not your fault. Maybe, he replied, but he was already shaking his head, lost in regret. I should have seen it coming. I was so focused on my own spirals that I didn't see Lily's. I thought I could protect her, but The sincerity in his eyes nearly broke her heart. You're trying now, Jenna reminded him gently. As they arrived at a grimy building, a sinking feeling settled in Jenna's stomach. Didn't feel right. The neighborhood reeked of danger, the kind that seeped into your bones. Derek parked the car, both of them glancing toward the darkened entrance, hesitation swirling in the air. "This is the place," he said, his voice lower than before, trying to regain that semblance of confidence. Jenna nodded, but apprehension gripped her. They stepped out into a world that felt foreign, the buzzing of nearby streetlights casting eerie shadows on graffiti-stained walls. Each step they took resonated with uncertainty, a vibrancy of emotions coursing through her. He asked, searching her face. "I didn't come this far to turn back now," Jenna affirmed, steeling her resolve. They approached the entrance where a few scattered groups loitered, laughing too loudly, their eyes alight with mischief. Jenna felt the tension rise in her chest, the air thick with smoke and shadows. "Look for Lily. If you see her, just say her name." "She might respond," Derek instructed, his voice barely above a whisper. As they entered the dim interior, the noise hit them like a wave, loud music, laughter, chaos swirling around them. This wasn't the place they had frequented years ago, where dreams had felt achievable. This was a different realm, one painted in desperation. Jenna scanned the crowd, heart racing, but no sign of Lily appeared. The mix of emotions felt like a roller coaster, anxiety tangled with determination. She asked, biting her lip. "We will, just keep your eyes open," Derek replied, gripping her hand tighter, a tether in the chaos. They moved deeper into the crowd, weaving through bodies. Each passing face was a canvas of stories, but none told the one they were searching for. Then she saw her, a figure leaning against the bar, hair cascading down her shoulders, laughter spilling from her lips like a broken dam. Derek called, relief flooding his voice as they approached, but Lily's gaze shifted mischievously, the laughter turning to a smirk. "What do you want, Derek? Just talk to me for a minute," he replied, desperation creeping in. "This is my life now." She snapped back, her voice loud over the music. "Please, you can't keep doing this," he said, his worry spilling out. Lily scoffed, dismissing her brother as if he were a ghost. "I'm fine, Derek." "You're the one who's messed up," she shot back, focusing on the drink in her hand rather than facing reality. Jenna stepped in, sensing the urgency. "Lily, please, we care about you." At the sound of her voice, Lily froze, memories flickering in her eyes. There was always a bond, a shared childhood where laughter intertwined with dreams. "Jenna, trying to help," Jenna said, her voice steady. Lily hesitated before snorting, "Because Derek loves you and he's scared." Jenna took a small step forward, vulnerability layered with strength. Lily replied, a mix of defiance and uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "Whatever this is," Derek interjected, gesturing loosely to the chaos around them. "You're better than this." A momentary flicker of doubt crossed Lily's face, something deep and buried struggling to surface, but just as quickly she masked it with anger. "You don't get it." In that moment, a distant crash echoed through the building, startling them all. Derek's eyes widened, a sense of urgency flooding back. "We need to go now." But Lily pulled away, shaking her head furiously. "This is my life." Seconds stretched as Jenna glanced between the two, feeling the tempest of emotions swirl. "Please, Lily, we just want to help." That very honesty caught Lily off guard, her anger faltering as she looked into Jenna's eyes. There was a crack in her facade, the barriers they loved and cared for beginning to fracture. "Please," Derek pleaded again. In that instant, the chaos around them surged, the tension was rising, the danger palpable. Jenna urged. Finally, Lily's bravado cracked, vulnerability spilling forth like a broken dam. She shouted, voice breaking as she looked between them, desperation evident. "Just trust us," Derek said softly, stepping closer to her. "Let's leave." The sound of glass shattering echoed nearby, and that was the final catalyst for change. Lily's face went pale, all bravado dissipating as reality seeped in. She looked between them, fear replacing anger. "Okay," she finally whispered. They moved quickly, urgency propelling them through the crowd as they retraced their steps back to the entrance. The energy in the room felt dense, chaos brewing just beneath the surface. Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, but she pushed past the dread, focusing on the goal. As they reached the door, a group of men blocked their exit. The glint of danger shone in their eyes as they sneered, waiting for a reaction. One of them growled, stepping forward. Derek stepped protectively in front of Lily. "We're leaving." "Not so fast," another man sneered, gripping Derek's arm. Jenna felt her heart race. She yelled, determination bubbling up from deep within her. At moments she felt a rush of adrenaline, that sense of fight or flight igniting something primal inside her. One of the men shoved Derek back, and instinct kicked in. She shouted, surprising even herself. Without thinking, she pushed Lily forward and darted past the men, feeling the chaos erupt behind them. They bolted out into the night, their hearts pounding, breaths coming in rapid bursts. The adrenaline surged through Jenna as they sprinted toward the parked car, Derek's hand gripping Lily's tightly. They piled in, gasping, as Derek turned the ignition, scrambling to escape the hazard that threatened to consume them. The car roared to life, and they sped away, leaving chaos behind. As the tension dissolved into the night, Jenna felt a strange sense of exhilaration. They had done it, they had defied the darkness and come through the other side together. "Thank you," Lily whispered, her voice shaking in the aftermath of what they had just endured. "I didn't realize how." "You're not alone anymore," Jenna replied, feeling a warmth kindle in her heart. Derek glanced back at his sister, his expression fierce with determination. "We're going to help you, Lily." In the glow of headlights cutting through the darkness, they drove forward, a newfound bond forged through struggle and bravery, a path leading away from shadows toward a future filled with hope. And in that moment, as the night stretched long around them, they began to understand that the greatest journeys sometimes start in the most chaotic of places, with the very people we never expected to lean on. Together, the sound of laughter echoed through the crowded cafe, the warm aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around Jenna like a cozy blanket. She sat at a small table by the window, lost in the pages of her book, an escape from reality that had become her favorite pastime. But as she took a sip of her mocha, her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her focus away from the story. She glanced at the screen and her heart sank. Derek, just seeing his name made her stomach tighten. It was like a tightrope stretched between them, a balancing act of unresolved feelings and tangled history. The last time they'd spoken had ended in a mess of harsh words, bruised egos, and silence that stretched on like a cold winter night. With a reluctant sigh, she instinctively rolled her eyes. She muttered under her breath, ignoring the buzz. She tried to focus on her book, but that flickering sense of curiosity crept back in. What could he possibly want? A part of her wanted to dismiss him completely, but another part felt that familiar tug, a blend of annoyance and concern. Finally, giving in, she swiped to answer. Her voice dripped with irritation when she had perfected over time. "Jenna," he said, urgency lacing his tone, "I need your help." She replied, brow furrowing as she searched for the patience she'd thought was long gone. "I can't explain everything over the phone, just meet me at the park, please," he urged, a tremor in his voice that pulled at something deep within her. The park, memories flooded in, vivid and bittersweet. Late-night strolls, secrets shared beneath the stars, laughter echoing into the night air, moments that had stitched their lives together and now felt frayed at the edges. Against her better judgment, she felt her resolve wavering. "Because it's important, I wouldn't ask if it wasn't," he replied, desperation creeping in. A small, nagging voice in the back of her head whispered to ignore him once again, but the familiar warmth mingled with a sense of duty. She took a deep breath, knowing she was stepping into a territory she had hoped to leave behind. "Fine." As she arrived at the park, the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the path. Her heart raced, a mix of anticipation and looming dread. She spotted Derek pacing near their old bench, his hands stuffed nervously in his pockets. "Thanks for coming," he said, relief flooding his face when he saw her. She asked, crossing her arms, the barrier between them still firmly in place. "I need your help with my sister. She's in trouble," he said, the urgency bleeding through. She pressed, a knot tightening in her stomach. Derek hesitated, his face paling. "She's gotten involved with some dangerous people. I don't know how this happened." The fear in his voice struck a chord deep inside her. "They're not just the kind of people you can talk to and reason with. She's been hanging out with guys who are into drugs, the kind that can ruin her life. I can't get through to her, I thought." Jenna asked, the frustration bubbling up again. "Because you know her, you were close once." Jenna wrestled with the emotions swirling within her. "Please," he pleaded, his voice cracking slightly. Something shifted inside her, that tiny flicker of warmth igniting again. "Okay," she finally said, feeling the pull of her own past, the tangled memories pressing at the edges of her resolve. He glanced at his phone, anxiety flickering in his eyes. "I think she might be at that dive bar off 4th Street. "Then let's hurry," she said, a sense of determination growing within her. Together they could navigate this darkness. The drive felt surreal, there passed a heavy weight in the air, intertwining with the urgency of the moment. Jenna's mind raced through memories of laughter, fights, and the way it felt to be their genuine selves before everything got messy. As they arrived at the bar, the neon lights buzzed overhead, casting a grim glow over the entrance. Jenna felt a mix of apprehension and dread cling to her like a second skin. She asked, turning to Derek. "We have to go in," he said resolutely, glancing toward the entrance. They pushed through the door, entering into a world alive with noise, laughter, and the unmistakable aura of trouble that clung to the air. The atmosphere was thick with smoke and shadows, pulsing beats filling the room, making it hard to breathe. "I can't believe she'd come here," Jenna muttered, scanning the crowd searching for Lily. "Sometimes people think they're invincible," Derek replied, searching the faces with urgency. Moving deeper into the bar, Jenna tried to keep her heart steady. She remembered her own moments of foolishness and adventure, always teetering on the edge of recklessness. But this was different. This was darkness that felt too heavy, too real. Suddenly, Derek's eyes lit up. There, he pointed toward a booth where Lily sat, surrounded by people who appeared too carefree for the intensity of their surroundings. Derek called out, urgency flooding his voice. Lily turned, her face scrunching in annoyance before shifting to surprise when she realized who it was. She snapped, her defiance rising like a tidal wave. The confidence she exuded was jarring, belying the chaos that permeated the room. Derek pressed, stepping closer, fear evident in his expression. She waved him off dismissively, laughter bubbling up from the group surrounding her. "I'm fine, just having fun," Lily replied, eyes unfocused, the shadows of her friends looming despite their apparent lightheartedness. fun. Derek's voice wavered between anger and concern. Get off my back, Derek. She yelled, the defensiveness like armor wrapping around her. Please, Jenna chimed in, catching Derek's eye. Lily shot back, arms crossed defiantly. Because we care about you, Jenna said, her voice steady, wishing to break through the barrier that surrounded them. You're not alone in this. Lily hesitated, the bravado faltering for just a moment. Help with what? Jenna took a step closer, feeling the weight of vulnerability unraveling. You're right, I don't, but I can see that this isn't you, Lily. As the words left her mouth, the tension in the air shifted. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Lily's face, barely perceptible, but Jenna caught it. You don't have to do this. You can have a better life, she urged, pouring everything into that one moment. Before Lily could respond, an unexpected crash interrupted, glass shattering on the other side of the bar. The mood shifted instantly, a ripple of tension sweeping through the crowd. Let's go. Derek's voice rose above the noise, urgency overtaking them as he grabbed Lily's arm. Fear flickered in Lily's eyes as she looked between her brother and Jenna. He shouted. Jenna pulled Lily along, adrenaline surging through her veins. This was it, the turning point. They made their way toward the exit, but the chaos erupted around them as people surged and pushed in all directions. Suddenly, a group of rough-looking individuals blocked their path, sneering at Derek and Jenna with a sense of menace that sent chills down Jenna's spine. One of them growled, stepping closer, eyes glinting with menace. Let us through, Derek demanded, stepping in front of Lily protectively. You don't own this place, another one said, a mocking grin spreading across his face. Without thinking, Jenna stepped forward, a sudden rush of courage pushing her beyond the fear. We're done here. We're leaving, she announced, her voice cutting through the tension. The men exchanged glances, unsure how to respond. Looks like we have some troublemakers, one taunted, sizing them up, but Derek wouldn't back down. This is my sister. We're not letting you take her down with you, he shouted, voice fierce and unwavering. Jenna felt her heart race as the atmosphere shifted. They couldn't back down now. We're leaving, she repeated, her voice steady, determination flowing through her. Finally, one of the men sighed, feigning disinterest. Whatever, not our problem. They stepped aside, allowing a path to open up. Without another word, Jenna, Derek, and Lily rushed toward the exit, feeling the weight of danger ebb away with each step. As they stumbled out into the night air, a sense of relief washed over them. Lily breathed heavily, glancing incredulously at her brother. You almost got pulled into something dangerous. Derek replied, fear still clinging to his voice. I didn't want you to worry about me, Lily said, voice breaking, vulnerability shining through the bravado. A little late for that, Derek replied gently, pulling her into a hug. We're here for you. Staring into the night, Jenna felt a rush of hope intertwined with caution. Despite the chaos and danger, something profound had shifted in that moment. A bond resurfaced, healing the frayed edges of their relationships, promoting strength amid vulnerability. As they made their way to the car, Jenna took a deep breath, recognizing the transformation within herself as well. The shadows they had fought to escape held lessons, and together they had taken steps toward healing. And in that moment, Jenna understood they weren't just escaping danger. They were reclaiming their lives and rewriting their futures, one bold choice at a time. No longer just a tangled history, but a canvas for new beginnings forged in the fires of adversity. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to fight for themselves and each other, locked together by a bond stronger than any chaos life could throw at them. The rain pelted down outside, drumming against Jenna's window like an impatient child. She had just settled into her cozy spot on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her and a cup of steaming tea cradled in her hands. The dim light of the lamp cast a warm glow, making her feel safe and calm. That is, until her phone buzzed sharply on the coffee table. She glanced over, squinting at the screen and feeling her stomach twist. Derek. Just seeing his name sent a jolt of irritation through her. It was a name she had tired of long ago, a name that had been the center of too many arguments, late-night fights, and heartbreaks. Rolling her eyes, she thought about ignoring it, but curiosity clawed at her. Why now, why him? She hadn't heard from him in weeks, not since their last confrontation, a bitter, messy battle of emotions. She groaned, picking up the phone. Jenna, I need your help, came his voice, breathless and urgent, the kind that made her sit up straight. Her heart raced, knowing this wouldn't be a simple request. I can't explain it all over the phone. The word important hung in the air, filled with weight and concern, making her pause. She shot back, her defenses already rising. Please, he urged. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Her heart thumped in her chest, the old park. Memories flooded in, laughing under the stars, sharing ice cream, sitting on that old swing, talking about their dreams. It had been their sanctuary, but now the thought of returning felt like stepping onto broken glass. Derek, I don't know, just please, he interrupted, sounding genuinely scared. The mention of his sister made her stomach drop. She had always liked Lily. She's gotten into some trouble, he confessed, his voice trembling. I can't handle this alone, her heart twisted. Because you have a way of connecting with people, she used to look up to you. Please, Jenna. A part of her wanted to stick to her guns, to refuse and walk away. But there was an urgency in his voice that quelled her anger, a vulnerability that pulled at her heartstrings. Fine, she said, feeling the edges of her resolve fade. I'll come. After a quick drive through the rain-slicked streets, Jenna arrived at the park. The air was crisp and filled with the earthy scent of wet leaves. She spotted Derek pacing under the old oak tree, his eyes darting nervously. When he saw her, relief flooded his features. "Thank you for coming," he said, almost breathless. She asked, crossing her arms as a shield, her heart pounding in anticipation. "My sister, she's been involved with some dangerous people," he said, not meeting her gaze. "She's been hanging out with a crowd that's not safe. I tried to reach her, but she just won't listen," he admitted, anguish leaking into his voice. She asked, feeling a knot form in her stomach. "I thought I could fix it myself. I didn't want to involve you in this mess," he said, guilt etched across his face. His vulnerability stirred something deep inside her, drawing her back to the moments that had once made their bond feel like sunshine breaking through clouds. "I think she's at the Hive," he said, referring to a bar known for trouble, a place where innocents went to die. "Let's go," she said, her resolve shifting into determination. The drive felt surreal, the rain creating a curtain around them, washing away the past and framing the urgency of the moment. The weight of their shared history hung like fog, thickening the atmosphere. As they approached the Hive, the neon sign buzzed ominously, casting a glow over the dingy exterior. Jenna's heart raced. She asked hesitantly, "We have to go in," Derek replied, eyes focused. Stepping through the door was like moving into another world. The smell of alcohol and smoke smothered them, laughter echoing through the cacophony of voices. It felt chaotic, dangerous, a stark contrast to the memories they had shared in the park. "Stay close," Derek muttered, scanning the room for familiar faces. Jenna nodded, feeling the atmosphere prick at her skin. They maneuvered through the crowd until they spotted her, Lily, sitting at the bar, surrounded by shady characters who looked like they had seen far too much of life's darker sides. The sight of her made Jenna's heart ache. Derek shouted above the noise, pushing through the sea of bodies. Lily turned, her expression a mix of confusion and irritation. She snapped, "I'm here to check on you," he replied, stepping closer. She scoffed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. "I'm fine," Derek echoed, disbelief washing over him. "This isn't fun, Lily." Jenna stepped forward, sensing the tension spiraling out of control. She asked softly, her tone steady yet firm. Lily rolled her eyes defiantly. "Because I'm here to help you," Jenna countered, surprised at her own steadiness. "We care about you. You've been gone. There's still a part of you that I recognize," Jenna replied, her heart racing as she fought to keep the conversation open. "You're better than this, Lily." Tension hung in the air, thick enough to cut. Lily's defiance began to slip, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quietly, but the strength in her voice was faltering. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the bar, glass shattered as it hit the floor, the sound slicing through the tension like a knife. People turned, startled, and an unsettling energy filled the room. Derek shouted, grabbing Lily's arm. She hesitated, panic spreading across her features. "I can't just leave," she gasped, glancing around as the atmosphere shifted. "They're not worth it," Derek insisted, voice steady and commanding. But before they could move, a group of rough-looking men stepped in their direction, their smirks twisted into sneers, eyes glinting with menace. One of them drawled, stepping forward as if to block the exit. "We're leaving," Jenna said, stepping up beside Derek, heart pounding with a mix of fear and courage. "Not so fast," another man said, crossing his arms as if he owned the place. "Let us through. This isn't your scene anymore," Derek said, his voice firm. The men exchanged glances, the tension sizzling in the air. It was a dangerous standoff, and Jenna could feel the fear crawling up her spine. She took a small step forward. "If you know what's good for you, you'll let us pass," she said, surprising even herself with her audacity. The first man growled, taking a threatening step closer. Derek shouted, stepping protectively in front of Lily, determination etched in his features. But before either man could respond, a sudden shout broke through the tension, a fight breaking out on the other side of the bar, drawing their attention like a magnet. Derek yelled, grabbing Lily's hand, pulling her toward the door. They dashed toward the exit, adrenaline surging as chaos erupted behind them. Jenna's heart raced, pounding like a drum in her chest. They burst through the doors and down the steps, lungs burning from the sudden exhilaration. Derek shouted and they scrambled inside, locking the doors just as the sounds of shouting and broken glass echoed behind them. Lily gasped, wide-eyed as she glanced back, fear etched on her face. Derek started the engine, the car roaring to life as he peeled out of the parking lot. "Yeah, we're okay," he said, but the tension lingered in his voice. Lily asked, her voice shaking. "You're safe now," Jenna reassured her, patting her shoulder gently. Fighting against the tide of emotions, Jenna glanced at Derek, who was gripping the wheel white-knuckled. He breathed, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I can't believe this is my life," Lily said, voice trembling. Derek let out a heavy sigh. "We're just glad you're okay." With each passing moment, the adrenaline wore off, replaced by the weight of realization. They had survived a close call, one that could have turned deadly in an instant. Derek asked, turning the car onto a quieter street, his tone softening. "I thought I could handle it," Lily admitted, her voice small. "I just wanted to fit in." And I felt a wave of compassion wash over her. "You don't have to live like this, Lily. You can find your way back." Lily replied, tears shining in her eyes. "I don't want to be like them. Then let us help you find it again," Derek said, his voice filled with conviction. The sincerity hung in the air, a fragile truth woven through the chaos. They had each other, and that was enough to face whatever came next. As they drove through the night, Jenna felt a sense of hope blossoming in her chest. The shadows from earlier began to recede, replaced by a flicker of light as they moved forward together. No longer were they just tied by broken history. Now they were allies facing the chaos, determined to rewrite their story filled with strength, support, and love. And in that moment, amidst the uncertainty, Jenna knew one thing was certain: they would stand together against whatever storms lay ahead. After all, sometimes the most challenging paths lead to the brightest destinations, as long as you don't walk them alone. The rain pattered softly against the windows, creating a soothing rhythm that made Jenna feel like she was wrapped in a cocoon. She settled deeper into her couch, a steaming cup of chamomile tea cradled in her hands. The scent of vanilla candles flickered in the air, a perfect antidote to the chaotic world outside. Just as she began to lose herself in the pages of her book, her phone buzzed sharply on the coffee table. She glanced over, her heart sinking as she recognized the name flashing on the screen. Derek. Just seeing it made her stomach twist. She rolled her eyes and let out a small huff. Ignoring the call, she turned back to her book, but the words blurred in front of her. Maybe it was a fleeting moment of curiosity, or maybe it was the way her heart tightened at the thought of him. Whatever it was, she felt the pull of history and unresolved emotions tugging at her. After a moment, the phone buzzed again. Another call, another message. Jenna picked it up with a sinking feeling, reading the text, "Please answer." She hesitated, her thumb hovering over the screen. The word echoed in her mind, heavy with layers of meaning, like a weight pressing down on her. The last time they had spoken, it hadn't ended well. How could she possibly help him now? But even as the doubt swirled in her mind, the curiosity gnawed at her. Finally, she swiped to answer, unsure of what to expect. "Jenna," he sounded breathless, and it sent a shiver down her spine. "I really need you to listen to me." The old park. Memories rushed back like an unwelcome tide, laughter shared in the sunlight, fights resolved under the stars. The swings that had carried whispers of dreams and promises now felt tainted. She found herself asking, her voice wrapping around a layer of defiance. "Because it's important," he insisted, urgency filtering through the line. Her heart raced with a mix of anger and concern. As infuriating as he could be, there was something in his tone that broke through her defenses. "Fine," she finally snapped, not fully convinced she was making the right choice. "I'll come." When she arrived at the park, the sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting golden rays that danced through the leaves. Jenna felt a chill in the air, a sense of unease swirling around her. She spotted Derek pacing near their old bench, his silhouette tense and restless. "Thanks for coming," he said, relief washing over his features when he saw her. She asked, summoning every ounce of skepticism she could muster, crossing her arms to shield herself from his gaze. "My sister Lily," he said, taking a shaky breath. Jenna probed, her stomach nodding at the seriousness of his words. Derek hesitated, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "She's involved with some bad people." The fear in his eyes shook Jenna to her core. She didn't want to feel sympathy for him, not after everything that had transpired between them. She asked, skepticism creeping back. "Because you know how to reach people," he said, eyes desperate. The vulnerability in his plea cracked open something deep inside her. Maybe he really was scared. Maybe this wasn't just about them anymore. Jenna asked, the tension rising. "I think she's at the Hive," he said, his lips tightening into a grim line. Her heart raced at the thought. The Hive was known for trouble, a place where the light of hope flickered dimly if at all. "We don't have any other options," he replied, determination filling his voice. As they drove toward the bar, the rain started to fall in earnest, a heavy downpour that blurred the lines of the road. Jenna gripped the passenger seat, a mix of anxiety and trepidation swirling within her. The weight of their shared history hung in the air. It was like stepping into a shadow. Arriving at the Hive, they stepped out into the rain, the noise from within echoing into the night. The neon sign buzzed and flickered, illuminating the rough crowd that loitered outside. Jenna's nerves tightened and she instinctively reached for Derek's arm. He asked, eyes scanning the darkened entrance. "No," she said honestly. The atmosphere inside the bar was suffocating, thick with smoke and desperation. Shouts of laughter mingled with the bass of the music, creating a chaotic canvas that felt foreign and dangerous. Jenna could feel her heartbeat quicken as they pushed through the throng of bodies, Derek leading the way. Derek shouted over the noise, pointing toward a table where Lily sat, laughter pouring from her lips. She was surrounded by a group of equally reckless-looking companions, their eyes glinting with a sense of mischief. Jenna felt a pit in her stomach as they approached. Lily's carefree demeanor was jarring against the backdrop of the chaos. Derek called out, urgency lacing his tone. Lily turned, her face morphing from surprise to annoyance. He took a step closer, desperation etched across his features. "We need to talk." She rolled her eyes as if dismissing him completely, laughter spilling from her lips. "I'm fine," Derek repeated, incredulous. "This isn't good," Lily snapped back, crossing her arms defiantly. Jenna stepped forward, sensing the tension rising. "Can we just talk somewhere? This isn't the right place for this," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Lily turned her gaze, dismissing Jenna with a quick wave of her hand. "Because I care about you," Jenna said, an unexpected wave of emotion swelling over her. "We're here because we love you." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Lily's face, but she quickly masked it with disdain. "I can handle it." Derek stepped forward, anger flaring in his voice. "You think you know how to handle this?" At that moment, a sudden crash erupted behind them, followed by a chorus of chaotic laughter. It sent adrenaline coursing through Jenna's veins, the atmosphere shifting sharply. Derek shouted, panic growing as he grabbed Lily's arm, but she hesitated, fear flashing in her eyes. He insisted, a hint of desperation creeping in. In that split second, Jenna's heart raced and she could feel the pressure building around them. She stepped in front of Lily, the weight of her conviction pushing her forward. "You're better than this, Lily." But the moment hung heavy, tension crackling in the air. As if on cue, more bodies began to crowd around them, sensing the confrontation stirring. One of the men sneered, stepping forward with a glint of menace in his eyes. Jenna felt a chill run down her spine as she glanced at Derek, silently asking for guidance. "You don't want to get involved in this," he answered, his voice low but firm. Another man interrupted, stepping closer, looking for a reaction. Jenna's heart raced and her instincts kicked in. "We're leaving now," she proclaimed, trying to project calm amid her own swirling fear. But the group only laughed, turning the tension into something darker, more dangerous. One of the men taunted, a malicious grin on his face. Derek demanded, stepping protectively in front of Lily again. Realizing time was slipping away, Jenna lunged forward. The group shifted closer and a chaotic pulse of fear washed over her. "This is our chance," Derek yelled, grabbing Lily's hand and making a break for the exit. The scene erupted around them, yells and shouts mixed with laughter as the crowd surged. Jenna pushed forward, adrenaline propelling her. They dashed toward the door, her heart pounding as they burst outside into the cool air. Derek shouted and they jumped into his vehicle, breathless, their hearts racing. Lily asked, glancing back with wide eyes. The adrenaline still coursing through Jenna made her feel alive, but it was soon mixed with a great sense of relief. "You're safe," she assured Lily, patting her hand gently. Derek fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking but focused. As the car roared to life, they pulled away, the city lights blurring by. Lily's breath evened out, but panic still danced in her eyes. "What was that?" "You almost got tangled in something that could have destroyed everything," Derek replied, his voice steadying with each mile they drove. "I didn't mean to," Lily cried, tears brimming in her eyes. "We're going to figure it out," Jenna said, her voice soothing. "You're not alone anymore." "I can't believe I put you both through this," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with remorse. "Everyone makes mistakes," Derek said, vulnerability creeping into his tone. As their car cruised through the rain-drenched streets, Jenna felt the weight of the night beginning to lift. They had faced chaos together, and in doing so, a sense of solidarity surged within her. They were not just a trio bound by circumstances, they were resilient allies forging a new path together. "Thank you for coming with me," Derek said, glancing at Jenna. She looked back at him, her heart softening. No matter their past, here they were, ready to face the future side by side. "I'll always be here to help, Derek, she teased lightly, easing the tension. "Agreed," he chuckled, a sense of relief washing through the car. And as they drove into the night, Jenna realized that sometimes the most difficult paths lead to the brightest destinations. The kind of moments that break you open, reshape your heart. With every ounce of courage, they had stepped into the darkness together, all for the sake of love, friendship, and the promise of hope. In that car, as rain drummed steadily against the roof, they were not just trying to survive, they were choosing to live fully together. And for the first time in a while, Jenna felt the promise of a brighter dawn just around the corner. The rain drummed against the window, casting a gray gloom over Jenna's cozy apartment. She had just settled into her favorite chair with a novel when her phone buzzed on the table, jolting her back to reality. She glanced at the screen and felt her stomach sink. Derek, just seeing his name, made her roll her eyes in exasperation. "Not this again," she muttered, debating whether to ignore the call. After all, it had been months since they'd last spoken. Their last encounter had spiraled into a heated argument, filled with unspoken frustrations and the kind of hurt that scarred deeply. But something in her hesitated, curiosity clawing at her. What could he possibly want now? With a reluctant sigh, she swiped to answer. She said, trying to sound indifferent, hoping to mask the swirling emotions beneath. His voice sounded rough and shaky, haunted even. "I need your help." Her heart momentarily skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain everything over the phone, just, please meet me at the old park." The old park, memories flooded her mind like rushing water laughs shared, secrets whispered under a starlit sky, a sanctuary that had now turned hollow. She took a deep breath, feeling a mix of annoyance and concern. "I understand, but it's not about us," he pleaded, desperation creeping into his tone. "It's about my sister." The mention of his sister sent a jolt through her. She had known Lily bright and hopeful, always smiling. "She's in trouble," Derek said, and for a moment his voice broke. The weight of his words sank in, brewing a storm of conflicting feelings inside her. "Fine," she relented, though a part of her wanted to recoil. "I'll meet you." As Jenna made her way to the old park, she grappled with swirling doubts. Why was she falling for this? Why did she care? But deep down, that flicker of old affection for him and concern for Lily pushed her forward, even if the past capped her heart with a layer of frost. Arriving at the park, she noticed the sun had hidden behind thick clouds. The air felt heavy with humidity, as if bearing the weight of unspoken words. There he was, pacing like a trapped animal, a storm brewing in his expressive eyes. "Thanks for coming," Derek said, relief spilling over his features when he saw her. She asked, her arms crossing in a protective gesture. "My sister's gotten involved with bad people," he said, running a hand through his disheveled hair. She echoed, feeling a pang of worry. "Yes, she was hanging out with a group that, I know they're into drugs, I didn't see it coming." The urgency in his voice was palpable, the trembling of his hands betraying his resolve. She questioned, skepticism rising despite her welling empathy. "I can't reach her, but you always had a way of making her laugh, of getting through to her. I thought maybe you could talk sense into her," he pleaded. Jenna felt torn. Memories of Lily flickered like old photographs, innocent, full of life, before addiction twisted the narrative. Yet did she dare wade back into this turbulent water? She finally asked, her heart racing with newfound determination. If Lily was in danger, she wouldn't just stand by. "There's a bar she's been going to dive called the Hive," he said, glancing around, anxiety gnawing at him. "Let's go," Jenna agreed, the weight of nostalgia and duty urging her forward. The drive to the Hive felt surreal, the road slick with rain and the world outside becoming a blur. The tension inside the car was thick enough to suffocate. Jenna risked a glance at Derek, who stared straight ahead, lost in thought, his jaw clenched. She ventured, breaking the silence. "No," he replied quietly, glancing briefly at her, but she could see the layers of guilt and frustration swirled within him. "I shouldn't have let us drift apart," she replied, feeling an unexpected pang of warmth. "Only when the stakes are high," he murmured, punctuating the seriousness of their mission. Arriving at the Hive, the neon lights flickered ominously, illuminating a thrumming crowd outside. Jenna hesitated for a brief moment. This was it, the threshold between chaos and safety? Derek asked, though she could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "Never been more ready," she lied, trying to muster confidence she didn't quite feel. Inside, the bar was alive with loud music and raucous laughter. The walls seemed to vibrate as Jenna scanned the space for a familiar face. Each step felt heavier than the last, the energy tinged with danger. Derek shouted suddenly, pointing toward a booth near the back. There was Lily, surrounded by a rough crowd, her laughter ringing out like a siren song, unaware of the danger lurking in the shadows. Memories of their childhood flooded Jenna's mind. Derek called, pushing through the throng. To their shock, Lily turned, her face shifting from surprise to irritation instantly. She snapped, her voice harsh yet laced with fear. "We need to talk," Derek said, stepping closer, his voice steady. "Talk." "I'm busy," she retorted, dismissing him. "Busy?" Jenna interjected, feeling the tension spiral. Lily rolled her eyes, brushing them off as if they were a pair of gnats. "I'm fine," Derek echoed, disbelief flooding his features. "These people are not your friends, Lily." But Lily's face hardened, defiance replacing the flicker of doubt. Jenna felt like she was losing her grasp, the panic swelling. "Just listen to us." But before they could bridge the gap, a loud crash captured their attention, glass shattering, voices raised in anger. It sent a surge of panic coursing through Jenna's veins. Derek yelled, panic spilling into his voice. Lily hesitated, fear swirling in her eyes. "That's why we're here, we'll get you out." Derek urged, pulling her arm. Jenna felt the tension snap, her instincts kicking in. She shouted, grabbing Derek's arm and pulling them toward the exit. Chaos erupted behind them as people surged, laughter morphing into alarm. They darted toward the door, adrenaline fueling their escape. Derek urged, shoving Lily ahead of them. But as they rushed outside, Jenna felt a pair of men blocking their path, their expressions dark and predatory. One of them growled. Derek shouted, stepping protectively in front of Lily. "Not so fast," another man sneered, a threatening grin plastered across his face. Jenna's heart raced, and with instinct driving her, she shouted, "You don't want to do this, we're not causing trouble." The group exchanged glances, tension thickening the air. They knew they were outnumbered, barricaded in this moment. One of the men asked, a dangerous glint in his eye. Derek turned, voice strong and demanding. "She's my sister, we're leaving." "I think we'll make it worse," the man replied, stepping forward menacingly. Jenna shouted, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. "We're leaving," but just then another louder crash erupted behind them. A table tipped over, chaos spilling through the bar. That was their moment. Derek yelled, grabbing Lily's hand. They pushed through the crowd, bodies jostling against them, panic igniting as they dashed toward the exit. The door slammed open and they burst out into the open air. Derek shouted, shoving Lily forward as they scrambled inside. Jenna's heart pounded in her chest. Everything felt surreal, noise fading into the distance as they pulled away. Lily gasped, glancing back, fear sparkling in her eyes. Yeah, but we were too close, Derek replied, his voice laced with tension. In the thick of chaos, they had escaped, but a frightening reality lingered what would happen next. What was that? Lily asked, her voice trembling. Derek glanced at Jenna, and in that split second, they both realized the fragile bridge they needed to build. You have to promise us you'll stay away from those people, he said, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Didn't think it would get this bad, Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Jenna felt a conflicting sense of empathy and weariness. It can be easy to lose sight of who you are when you're searching for belonging, she said gently. The tension hung in the air like a fog, but as they drove deeper into the night, something else began to stir an overarching sense of urgency. They had to figure this out now before Lily spiraled further. Just then, Derek's phone buzzed on the dashboard, cutting through the silence. He glanced down at the screen, his expression shifting to one of alarm. It's him, he said, the color draining from his face. Jenna asked, anxiety gripping her. The person Lily was with, the one who runs the group. Before she could respond, a loud bang echoed against the car, followed by a shadow moving in the rearview mirror. Jenna shouted, heart racing as the night twisted into a chaotic mystery. As they sped away, the reality settled and a battle was brewing, and they were stuck in the eye of the storm. The stakes had never been higher, and the dread began to seep through life's fragile facade. With each passing moment, they hurtled toward an uncertain fate, a cliffhanger suspended in time, their lives teetering on the edge of darkness. What lay ahead was unknown, but even amidst the chaos, they held on to the hope that courage could still lead them back to the light.